Hi, my name is Alyssa Rizzo, and today I'm going to be presenting on a proposal to address campus rape and sexual assault in the United States, which unfortunately is a very common problem today. So the agenda today, we're first going to look at the problem, so some useful key terms that we can use to describe the problem, viewing sexual violence as an epidemic and a threat to academic freedom. Then we're going to look at a three-step solution plan, which I developed for the purpose of this project, which institutions should be expected to implement based on the demographics of their campuses in a way that they see best. And last is going to be a call to action. So I'm going to let you guys know how you can get involved today. So first, starting with the problem and epidemic of campus violence, I have a quote from President Obama in 2014, which was the start of his It's On Us campaign, a campaign that was started to combat the problem of sexual violence on college campuses. But before we get into the problem, we're going to talk about two definitions. These are from an article entitled Rape and Sexual Assault on College Campuses by Julian B. Roebuck and Komjurti S. Murty, which we'll be using throughout the presentation today. So some statistics to look at the problem. So 1 in 5 women will experience sexual violence while they are on a college campus, which this is about an estimate. Some other reports have said 1 in 4, so 25%. Up to 75% of campus attacks involve the consumption of alcohol, which usually means that they took place in a setting where alcohol is typically present, such as at Greek life social events or sporting social events. Half the time, the survivor and the rapist are at least somewhat familiar with each other. So they've either just seen each other around on campus, maybe they know each other's names, but not really much else. Maybe they're family members, maybe they're friends, maybe they're in the same friend group, any of the above. And lastly, 80% of attacks typically go unreported, which I think is a very startling statistic. And lastly, the one statistic that I want you guys to walk away with today is 13% of students found guilty for sexual assault are actually expelled. So there's another estimate that says 20 to 68% of students found guilty are suspended. So in both the situations, those statistics are very low. You would expect that it would be a higher amount, but unfortunately it is not. And this is what really kickstarted my research and inspired me to create the following 3-step plan. So starting with the solution part of this presentation, I interviewed a student who unfortunately has a lot of experience with this issue. She chose to remain anonymous for this presentation, but she was telling me all about the attacks that she has experienced and that she wasn't really sure where to turn after each attack. She wasn't sure where to report the attack or who to talk to or what was exactly the right thing to do in the situation. And she was left struggling and wondering why institutions would allow this to happen to their students. Which leads me to our 3-step solution overview. So step 1 is adopting constructive rhetoric to talk about the issue using affirmative language, such as saying survivor rather than victim. And I'm going to list some more examples when we get to that point. Step 2 is improving the reporting process. So like my friend disclosed to me, she wished that the reporting process was easier to navigate, easier to use, and easier to access. So improving the reporting process, I believe, would help either survivors or students that are worried about survivors get the help they need. In step 3, we're going to be talking about criminal versus civil cases. So on college campuses, unfortunately, sexual assault and rape is considered a civil case rather than a criminal case. And I believe that the most important step that would signal progress in this issue is redefining that. So saying that rape, no matter where it occurs, or sexual assault, no matter where it occurs, on campus or off campus, it is still considered a criminal case. So step 1 is adopting constructive rhetoric. So getting rid of categories and using lenses instead to refer to sexual assault and rape. So categories such as date rape, acquaintance rape, or party rape really aren't effective anymore. And rather, we should be exploring some of the following lenses that are on the next slide as well as influencing factors such as location, type of perpetrator, type of survivor, things like that. So some examples include talking about social status, financial status, or the social setting that it took place in. So like I said earlier, Greek life and sports are typically the two main ones, as well as some independent social scenes as well. And some themes to also look at are power dynamics and control, which is a huge part of the conversation revolving around rape and sexual assault, because typically these situations, it boils down to a problem of power dynamics and wanting control over another person. And some language to avoid, we want to avoid using any stereotypical language, whether that's based in race or gender, because that's not helpful to the survivor or the perpetrator. It's not helpful in defining the problem or finding a solution, as well as survivor blaming or any language that suggests a hesitancy to believe the survivor. None of those are helpful either. Two is improving the reporting process for survivors. So a model reporting process would allow any student, so whether it's the survivor themselves or a student that's worried about them, to report any type of incident that occurred in any space owned, operated, or influenced by the institution. So this includes on and off campus spots. So off campus examples would include restaurants, bars, shops that rely on student business in order to thrive. Those would be considered institutions that are influenced by the university. We also want to give as much freedom as possible to the person reporting so they can disclose any information that they feel comfortable with. There's no pressure to include details that they aren't ready to talk about or will never be able to talk about. And also, ideally, it's going to be user-friendly and a safe experience. So expectations that go along with that include the reporter can expect a response within 48 hours, and within those 48 hours, they're going to be teamed up with a group of people that can help them to see what actions they need to take. So this includes a Title IX coordinator, a guidance counselor or therapist, anyone else that the university thinks would be necessary for the survivor to be in touch with, possibly local law enforcement as well. And if the survivor or reporter is not satisfied at any point, they're encouraged to go directly to law enforcement, which they will have their own reporting process as well. And advertising the availability of these resources, the reporting process should be advertised in any of the spaces that I mentioned before. So anywhere on campus or off campus that is influenced by students. It should be easy to see. So on entrances and exits, in bathroom stalls, things like that. And the website should be short, easy to memorize, and easy to find on the campus's website. The final step is the most important step in seeking progress towards a solution for this problem, which this is redefining sexual violence on campus as a criminal proceeding rather than civil. So this would hopefully result in harsher punishments for perpetrators, which then would result in justice and safety for survivors. So when the perpetrator is still on campus, the survivor may still feel fear, which this would be alleviated if the perpetrator was expelled from school rather than simply suspended or fined or anything of that sort. And finally, a call to action, so how you guys can get involved today. So there's two websites I'd like to recommend, knowyour9.com and endrapeoncampus.org. Both of those have resources that are specific to each community. So wherever you live, you can find marches to attend, protests to attend, petitions to sign, people to talk to, anything that you would really like to know about in your specific community. You can also reach out to your Title IX coordinator on campus and talk to them about what they're doing to solve the problem and if they're taking any proactive steps in the future, if they have any plans to continue to solve the problem, things like that. And as well, you can also campaign for an end to sexist language, which is harmful in examining the problem and therefore is harmful in finding a solution, as well as writing letters to people in power to redefine rape as a criminal proceeding rather than civil on campus. Thank you.